Jadon Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce out. Another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inso an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. I'm here today joined by Rory from the Bundesliga Show, gearing up for 7th season of the show and looking to cover the league as closely as possible with previews, reviews, and fantastic content. This is my first time meeting Rory as well. Welcome back, guys, to the podcast. Welcome, Rory. And just please, could you just introduce yourself, a little bit of your podcast, and how are you feeling about this chat we're going to have about Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund?
Yeah, looking forward to having a lovely chat with yourself, Pedro. Really, excited now for the start of a Bundesliga campaign, post World Cup, thinking about how everyone's done, the implications of that. We're gearing up for our seventh season now of the Bundesliga Show, which you can find on YouTube or via podcasts. We're looking forward to doing as much as we possibly can do, covering the league, some new teams to cover as well. We'll be previewing, reviewing, doing fantasy football. We'll be doing the lot, lots more, around the ground stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to it, as much as you are, no doubt as well, Pedro.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of things to talk about, but since the World Cup just finished, I thought it was important for us to start talking about that and reviewing the World Cup, but also in a Borussia Dortmund and Bundesliga perspective as well. So we can talk about how the players from the Bundesliga and from BVB performed the event. But I think, first of all, since you're from England, I think it's also important for us to get a different perspective. And since few of my colleagues are from the US, I think they're just curious because it just gave me some notes here. And they want to know, what do you think about the World Cup experience in the US? And do you think that helped broaden the sports reach in America? How was your perspective of the World Cup in that sense?
I think, So obviously, from an English perspective, I think the World Cup in America has been impactful from your perspective. I think just for the American audience being able to see football cultures all come together from across the globe, and just seeing what football means to everyone, I think has been so positive. Football in many cultures and countries is like religion, and no doubt that kind of feeling, I think, was translated really well in terms of the World Cup and how the fans all interacted. Well, what I saw across social media and on TV. Obviously I can't personally comment on what was happening on the ground, but Mark, the guy I do the show, the Bundesliga Show with, he was across there and got to go to a couple of games in person. He went to fan parks. He soaked it all in, and his feedback to me was nothing but positive overall in terms of how it was organized, how interactions, making new friends just from across the globe. So I think with taking that all into account, we don't want to really talk about the finances. We want to talk about the feel of it, really. And 100%, I feel like it hopefully will have translated across from an American point of view and really pushed the game forward. Go with the fact that there are so many standout players and kind of stories and headlines to come out of it, and seasons across Europe and otherwise are now going to be jumping into the start. Hopefully it's something that can really catch fire and lead to some more positivity from an American point of view. But I think overall it probably has had a really big impact.
Yeah, no, true. And completely agree. I think the World Cup is really surprising to me, especially in America. I had so many worries regarding the weather, regarding the water breaks, which is very unusual. I think for us, they're used to 2 full halves of football. That was very odd in the beginning, but I got used to it. I still don't want that to continue, but it's still a nice atmosphere. The World Cup and the matches all surprised me. Unfortunately, England didn't go to the final at that point in time. I'm sorry to give you bad memories. It's just I was just really supporting you
Yes.
guys against Argentina. Unfortunately, yeah, Thomas Tuchel didn't help you guys very much in that match, let's say. But
No,
yeah,
very true.
yeah, that's true. But yeah, let's just talk about positive things and just talk about the Bundesliga and the World Cup. I wanted to know if you have any thoughts on the Bundesliga players and more specifically also in the Dortmund players who performed in the World Cup. Do you have any standout players that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, from a Dortmund point of view, a man I know very well from a Stuttgart point of view is obviously Kobel. I thought he had a strong tournament for the Swiss. He is a shot stopper. I think his reputation in the game was already very strong, but obviously those that don't sympathise necessarily with the Bundesliga probably would have seen Kobel on the front foot, with his countrymen, and I think he did a really good job overall. And I think he was well up there from a statistical point of view with with shots saved. So I thought he did a good job, and he'll be feeling good about the new season overall. Um, Tricky one for the BVB based German players because, of course, the German national team didn't quite hit their straps. But Nemecha had a positive start to the tournament. He made some some good impacts in those early rounds. So I think there's something positive that you can take from that. Naturally, the ending from all of our point of view was disappointing, but from a Dortmund perspective, I think for me you got that you get that positivity from the match because he's been to he's been to the World Cup. He's soaked in all that experience. He's had success on a certain level, and he'll probably have the hunger to keep on going higher and higher in that respect. So taking his game to the next level is something that I'm really interested in as a player. So I thought he had a bright start, but naturally it dipped off, which was a shame. I think a player that we didn't see, which was a shame overall, was obviously Nico Schlotterbeck. I think he would have had a real big impact for Germany should he have lasted, and injuries happen, which is sad. But hopefully he'll be back fit quite soon. Aside from that, I think Ryerson, the assist machine from last season, did a real solid job with Norway. Norway obviously were a really exciting team to watch their journey, all the kind of fanfare that came around with them, the Haaland effect, the Viking row. Everyone loved it, and Ryerson had a really good part to play in it. Naturally, from an English perspective, I remember that game really well, and he had his struggles in that match from a one-on-one point of view. And I think it was Gordon who got at him quite a lot. And the way the Ryerson defence is always quite aggressive, which I really like. But he struggled in that game. But I think he'd been struggling with injuries, hadn't he, for a long time during that tournament, which was a shame. And he was really struggling in that match. So that was something positive you can take away from that, and he can kind of run into the season hopefully with a bit of rest and being fully fit. Aside from that, maybe Sabitzer. Mr. Reliable for Austria in what I thought was a disappointing campaign for them. There's so many Bundesliga players associated to that team for obvious reasons. I guess losing to the champions isn't a terrible thing that you can say, but it felt that their tournament was cut short really quickly and they didn't quite get going. But that 3-3 draw with Algeria was crazy. Sabitzer played a key role in that. They gave Argentina a good run as well. So yeah, I think those players that I've mentioned came out of the tournament with at least some sort of positive feel. I didn't feel like anyone had an absolute horror show at the very least.
Yeah, I completely agree because I don't think there's any standouts. I think the standout for me, I think, would probably be Nico, but Nico didn't have enough minutes due to injury. So that was very unfortunate, and hopefully he'll be back soon. But Even the guys who were good, like in matcha, and I was even discussing with the guys in the group because I'm not a matcha lover. Like I don't love him as a player, but I need to attribute the improvement that he had in the past season, and I think he really shown that in the beginning of the on Germany's campaign in the World Cup. Fortunately, he didn't maintain that, and neither the national team as a whole. I really think Nagelsmann regretted not taking a guy like Karim Adeyemi just to change a little bit the pace of the match. I really think they missed that against the likes of Paraguay, and really
Mm.
came to bite them later, and they got
Yeah.
shut down in the first phase, which was very surprising. I think no one was expecting that one. But yeah, I was wondering if there's any other Bundesliga players that called your attention that are not Borussia Dortmund, maybe some other standouts that are.
Yeah, no, for sure. There were some great moments for Bundesliga based players. I think the one that you really can't look past is, sadly, a player that probably won't be in the Bundesliga this coming season, which was Johan Manzambi. He was such an impact, for the Swiss. He was excellent, initially off the bench, making impact, scoring goals. And then eventually got himself into the starting lineup. I think is Newcastle that are going to benefit from his from his talent moving forward in the Premiership, which is a real shame to not have see his career progression. It's another one where you think, is it a season or two too soon to make that jump and that move? Time will tell. But he was awesome. Loved the way that he was playing and the way that his game has developed even over the last couple of seasons. His general output now in terms of scoring goals and making assists is awesome, and we saw that in the World Cup. A couple of well, I got to plug them because they're Stuttgart players, I guess. Be rude not to. It would be one of the few German players to come out with any credit would be Dennis Undav, because of the whole narrative that was around him and Julian Nagelsmann. The will he start, won't he start him? The goals he got off the bench, the match winning impacts that he made. To keep Germany in the tournament and moving forward. He's just a goal machine and a player on an upward trajectory. Such a strange thing that Nagelsmann couldn't find a way to at least initially keep him in the team. I know he did get the start eventually, which didn't work out. But yeah, 100% Undav had a positive impact. Obviously from an American aspect as well, some good representation, as we've always seen. Americans in the Bundesliga has been a real historic kind of trend, which has been awesome to see and continue. Maybe a rebirth for Gio Reyna. We saw impacts that he had for the US team. Maybe they felt a little bit elevated in those American colours and felt super important. And if we can see that version of him in a Gladbach shirt, that would be really exciting. Naturally, the big question, as ever for Gio, is keeping fit, staying fit. That would be great if he could. I also thought Thielmann had a real positive impact. Again, kind of seeing that confidence flowing through the shirt, which is a real positive thing to see that it can happen in a national shirt and vice versa. For him, he'll have to be one of those players on the front foot for a fresh-faced Leverkusen side. Still, we need to see more of that from him on a regular basis. Those levels, if he wants to go to the upper echelons of the top table of football. But I thought he was really impressive and has the game to match. Another player who I'd put in a similar category was, and there are loads of standout players. I don't want to witter on for ages, but I thought Nusa for Norway, RB Leipzig representation, similar levels to Tillman. Can see the talent, can see the ability to finish excellently, but we have to see that more and more and more. And if we think the narrative is that Diamonde might move on from Leipzig and go to PSG or Real Madrid, Nusa might be the main man at Leipzig, and he'll have to make that step up perhaps and kind of take charge. So that's a another player to pick out. I thought loads of the Japanese-based Bundesliga players did really well, and I think a man who's been linked to Dortmund as well, Keishu Sano, was excellent. The Mainz player, endless running machine, breaking up play, starting attacks. Absolute quality. So there are loads of bright stars representing the Bundesliga superbly well.
Yeah, I think even Sano was the guy who scored against Brazil, wasn't it? I'm almost sure it was him, right? Or maybe I'm mistaken now.
It might have been him.
I
Yeah.
think it might be. I'm Brazilian, so I should know, but I'm 95% sure it was him. But anyway, it didn't matter. We came back and then we got battered by Erling Haaland. So he didn't really, and he was a Dortmund player. So in that sense, I was happy for him. But yeah, sad for my national team. But yeah, I mean, I think we have so many interesting options here because what I'm going to do now, I think we can do a little game here, a top 5 Bundesliga players in the World Cup for this year. And there's many ways we can do it. I think how we can start, I think as a guest, you should go first and we go naming our from 5 to 1. And then we can maybe debate about it and then just maybe find a decision on our 5th, 4th, 3rd, and subsequently 2nd and 1st player. How does that sound? Good?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So please, if you want to start with your 5th best player, Bundesliga player in the World Cup.
5th best. I'll throw in Sano, I think, just for the fact that we saw so much progression from that Japanese team and him being at the heartbeat of it. Feels like a player that's underappreciated, so I think he should make my top 5.
Absolutely. I think for me it's a little bit complicated because I put in match as an honorable mention, close to 5. I think my 5th player is Upamecano. I really thought he showed up for France. I think it's a guy that's really under mean at times at Bayern Munich. I think he has really good skill set on the ball, but also really strong and decisive in tackles and interceptions, and he was really pivotal to France, even though they lost to Spain on that match. But was still a great performance overall during the whole tournament, and France had really difficult matches since the start. So I really think it's an interesting shout out, but I think we should keep Sano because I always like those underdog guys that no one expects to be there. But I think Sano really had a good tournament, and I think that's a good shout out. So I would keep him as a our 5th guy. Is that good?
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, let's lock him in.
Okay, so Sano number 5. And my number 4, I think I would just go bounce right and forth. For me, I would just be boring a little bit. I just put Olise in 4th. I think he has really good impact, especially in the first phase. He had a good impact in some knockout matches, but especially against Spain, I was really waiting to see more from Olise. Cucurella basically just didn't allow him to breathe at any second, and he didn't have much difference on that match. But Olise is still a great, incredible talent. At the same time, I don't like Bayern Munich. I'm glad that he is likely to stay in the league. Just to have those guys in the league and have the chance to play against those guys is always important. So I think it's a good shout out in 4th place in the league. I think for me to go to that top 3, I think he should have been a little more decisive in the most important moments for France. Mm-hmm. And in that case, they got Mbappe, they got Dembele, they got so many guys. Of course, it's hard to compete, but I was expecting a little more, especially against Spain. But what about you?
Yeah, no, that's a really fair shout, and I thought my picks need to be very careful and tactful to not mention too many Bayern players. So naturally, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to stick to my guns and not mention the FCB too much on a Dortmund podcast. I'll make sure I behave myself. So yeah, that's a very fair shout. He had impacts, but he was just completely cooked by Cucurella in that match in the semis for sure. I put in my 4th slot Jan Diamande, but I'm kind of looking back at the games that he had and maybe was outshone by other players. So I'd probably lean with you there, Pedro, and probably lock in Olise as 4th place.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so we keep Olise in 4th. And I think it's even good that I would just go right next to you. Sorry to cut you because it was supposed to be your turn, but my third player was Diamande. I think, of course, he should have been more decisive, especially in the knockout round. I thought he could be a little more the guy I was expecting him to be, especially a guy who was just getting his transfer to Real Madrid. I
Hmm.
mean, from what we heard from reports, it's more likely that he'll go to Spain. And if that goes, I think he's a tremendous talent and a guy that really deserved that move. Especially, I don't know if you saw his article on the Players Tribune about his sister. He made a beautiful letter to her. She died when she was 15, when he was still in Spain and Leganés. And that was a very emotional moment, I think, for anyone who read the letter. And
Hmm.
especially for that guy that, even though he goes to Madrid, which is also a team that I don't really like that much. I don't like the big guns in football, but due to this guy's story, his background, where he came from, really supporting him, and really hope he works in Real Madrid or whatever he ends up as his next club. But I think he deserves my shout in third place here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a completely fair shout. He was in my top five. And his story, as you've mentioned, is a really humbling one. And from other interviews and outlets I've seen, he really does come across as a grounded player, which will be something that, if he does go to Madrid, will be a really interesting dynamic for him to be able to get around being the superstar lifestyle and how he adjusts to that and the demand basically. But yeah, absolutely no problem with having Diamande in third place. And yeah, we can see who's going to make our top two.
Yeah, sure. By the way, you want to go since I went to two in a row?
Yeah, I'll give it a shout. For me, second place is tricky because um, I know who my first place is. Second place is a bit I'm not confident on, based on the fact that the how far the team involved went. Because my second place at the moment is Denis Sundav. That might sound a bit left field, um, and biased towards VfB Stuttgart, but I assure you it's not. Just the narrative around him, the performances that he put in to elevate his reputation from a global perspective and put in those goals. The output of goals and assists early on in the tournament was so high up there with other ranking players, that his name was mentioned by pretty much everyone. And I thought, this was going to be his tournament, or one of the players that stood out, which he was initially. So that's my shout for now, but I'm happy to be persuaded off the cliff if you have another one, Pedro.
No, I mean, I'm not, I was not as careful as you were of not naming too many Bayern Munich players here because, of course, as you can see in the background, I'm a Spurs fan as well, so it was impossible not to leave Harry Kane out of the list. In my official list, his second place. You guys might be wondering why a guy like Harry Kane would be my second place. That's a guy, especially in the two last knockout rounds, I thought he could have done a little bit more because I think when you think of Kane, you think of the guy who is going to be your decision maker, the guy who's going to make the difference and is going to be the clutch guy. And I don't think Kane was neither of those things in those last games. And I don't, in that sense, at the same time, I'm biased in that sense. At the same time, I want to be fair to what we have seen in the World Cup. And I don't think Kane was up to the standards that he settled for himself early in this past season, scoring so many goals and at the same time being brilliant in the beginning of the tournament for England. So in that sense, I would put Harry Kane in second for me. I would be glad just to leave Denis Zunda because I love those underground guys. So, but you're the guest, so please, what are your thoughts? Who are gonna keep in second? I think I'm all ears.
Oof. Pressure's on now because you've put me in a tricky position with Harry Kane. Um, I think you completely got it right there in saying those extra two knockout rounds that he played. Just the game drifted him by in a sense. He looked like a player on his last legs, completely spent from a massively long season football. And yeah, Captain Fantastic took England as far as he could, but I think we were left wanting more by the end of it, and that sadly just didn't materialise. So yeah, I think maybe just because of how we're talking about World Cup impact, and England did go a lot further than Germany. So yeah, let's go for Kane. I think that's only fair in that sense. And then leaves us just with the top spot.
And yeah, okay, I'll just go with the first place. I'm gonna go straightforward. My first place is Manzambi, and he's on my first spot besides of Harry Kane because I think we have to take in different proportions what Kane means to England to what Manzambi means this early in his career for Switzerland. I think Kane is the clutch guy, is the guy we expect the most from, and he did a great tournament. Of course, we were lacking those last few moments, the last stretch that would just make him the difference maker we know he can be. But Manzambi, he was that guy for the whole tournament for Switzerland. And I think Switzerland had a really solid game against Argentina on their own without Manzambi. And I'm almost sure if Manzambi played that game, we could have had a different story, possibly with Argentina getting home a little earlier than expected, a little earlier than, I wanted it to be. Of course, Spain beat them, so I'm still happy. But yeah, I think Manzambi had an incredible tournament for his age, and I still don't get it why he didn't start. I'm a Dortmund fan, so I like young players giving the opportunity to show their true colors and show their talent. And I don't really understand why the national Switzerland national team manager didn't give him his spotlight he deserved, and he showed why he was probably the most important player besides Xhaka for Switzerland in this tournament. So here's my pick for number one. What about you, Rory?
Yeah, we line up perfectly. Yeah, Manzambi, number one. As already kind of chatted about a little bit. War breakout tournament for a player, and that's what we like to see at World Cups. Players breaking out, making their impact on the global stage, which he did so many times. In such a clear and obvious way. It wasn't like the things that he did were ultimately that sly or unnoticed work. He was doing it front and centre and doing it so well for the Swiss. So yeah, number one, that's exactly where I'd slot him.
Okay, Rory, I definitely agree on that one. And yeah, I think we should go more on the Bundesliga right now. I think let's change the subject a little bit because the Bundesliga is just ahead of us. Only a couple of weeks before we can see our clubs playing again in Germany's best stadiums. And I want to know you, since we're in a BVB podcast, I want to know your thoughts on BVB squad and what you see of BVB as they're competing for the Bundesliga 2026-27 season. What are your thoughts on the squad and what can Dortmund deliver?
Yeah, no, obviously really looking forward to it now. I always want to see, Dortmund up there, challenging for titles, in the mix for trophies, and I think that's one thing from a Bundesliga title perspective. I think is a tricky thing to put into a Dortmund thinking right now. So I think because from my perspective, again, looking outside in, I always have really high expectations of Dortmund, and I always have, because they've always been the team challenging Bayern historically and running them close or winning league titles off them. I think ever since the dreaded season that no one probably wants to mention, where obviously the title was lost to Bayern on the last day, it's been something that Dortmund have found it really hard to recover from. And ultimately, last season particularly, I was probably harsher than I should have been on Dortmund in terms of their league campaign, because, aside from, a couple of losses at the end of the season where everyone had given up, outside of that, a couple of losses to Bayern, which happened, they weren't mathematically after that, they weren't even that far off at parts, and they put together a very reasonable and very strong Bundesliga season. This time around, based on what I've seen, incomings, outgoings, strength and depth, everything that you measure up, playing across 3 different competitions, I think from a league perspective, having that level of required consistency and dominance to win endlessly, which you will have to do to beat Bayern, will be an ask too far. I see Dortmund being very comfortable inside the top three. Of what position that might end up being, I'm unsure, because I think we have to judge squad strengths when we get to opening weekend and a few weeks in, once the window shuts for the summer. But really looking forward to seeing how I think this could be a season of breakouts for certain Dortmund players. One that we half saw last season, but I think the likes of Job, Bellingham, Ignacio, obviously Nemecha, who I've already mentioned earlier, Maxi Bayer. Some of these players need to now take their game to the next level, which I think some of them will do, and therefore propel Dortmund forward. I think, as ever, Dortmund will have fun in the Champions League. It always brings out the best in you guys, which is awesome to see from a European perspective, because, as ever, from a Bundesliga perspective, always cheering on the Bundesliga lads in Europe, and love seeing Dortmund, throw some excellent punches. And the way that the Champions League these days is set up, Dortmund will get through the league phase easily, and have a good run in the knockouts. I've no doubt. What I feel like we're probably going to talk about soon is that concern I have for the squad depth and being able to cope across those three in attacking positions is something that I have a slight worry about. Wide positions. So no, I think it's going to be a really interesting season for Dortmund, and again, it feels like a real fresh slate for a lot of teams at the start of this season, much like it was last season, with new head coaches abound. But obviously you've got Niko Kovac, running the show with all his experience, will put Dortmund in good stead. So, I think there's definitely things to look forward to from a Dortmund perspective. To what level or degree, I am really interested to see, and I'm not quite sure myself.
Okay, Rory. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time. We are out of time here in the show, but thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to plug anything before we say goodbye?
Just to check out the Bundesliga show, obviously, that myself and my colleague Mark work on. We'll be gearing up in a few weeks ourselves for some season preview shows, covering all 18 teams as much as we possibly can do with our spare time. So you can catch us on YouTube and on audio platforms if you just search the Bundesliga show.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Rory, again. Please, guys, follow their podcast in all platforms. Follow our podcast in our platforms. Dortmund Dispatch, only 5 stars recommendation for our pod. Thank you very much for tuning back to us. Today was a little bit of a shorter episode since we are within the preseason. A lot of things still going to happen for us, but let's hope Dortmund it's on the right track. And thank you very much, Rory, again, and see you guys next time.